Looks like our round one is going to be Daimax versus Eric L. Haru by looks of his extra tag there.
Yeah, I was just shouted out Daimax. This is someone that I do a decent amount of testing with. No clue what he has brought to the event today. We'll have to see how this plays out. Very excited to see how these casters play out their decks into each other. And it looks like Eric is going to be going first, setting a face down rune and playing a Viserys from their hand. A very interesting going first strategy with the Foloi Forest as well. Very interesting. Immediately, Daimax has to contend with a 6-3 on board.
Yeah, and that 6-3 will become a 7-3 if he's not careful. Wait a minute, is that Ignector?
That's Ignector! No way!
And that's going to bring out 2 more Ignectors to back it up. Daimax is on some kind of spicy tech here by the looks of it.
This is something that Daimax, I think, sent me a DM about some time ago and just said, Ignector's kind of crazy. And I'm pretty sure actually A-Drive made a tweet today as Daimax sets his face down here and looks to pass, I believe, as his battle phase has to be skipped by Ignector. Daimax made a comment in reply to Dan looking for what decks to look for, saying Ignector was going to top. So we might be seeing that happening here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's some kind of like a big push, kind of like what we saw with the Fire FTK list, or if it's just a good stuff fire pile, but we will have to see. Didn't quite see what spirit went under the Viserys, but I have to assume it's a Leviathan, right?
Yeah, that was a Leviathan from the recent Capricorn month, I believe, of Shattered Stars, the water month. Beautiful card, and looks like Daimax is going to Gorgon's Gaze the attack declaration.
Yeah, trying to keep up those bugs on the board. Absolutely understandable. And also stops the Viserys from being able to get another copy out of deck here. Granted, it's only 2 copies in general. Oh, looks like we're going for an Ascension, and that looks like it's Scavicole there. And that's going to be huge, allowing Daimax to search his deck for basically whatever fires he wants.
Yeah, for those at home which are maybe not familiar with the very powerful Scavicole that hasn't really seen a whole lot of play. This is a 5/4 double fire cost Elestral. When you ascend into it, you can expend a fire to search your deck for up to 2 cards. This card searches 2 cards, and they can have enchantment cost 1 fire or 2 fire. And so we're going to see here Daimax searching out Kindleo from the Tournament Pack 1 and Lavalith. That is horrifying. If you are Eric, you are sweating bullets.
Far more interesting thing there is that it doesn't have to get specifically Elestrals. It can get any fire enchantment cost cards, if I'm not mistaken there.
That's correct.
But with that, Daimax is going to follow it up with a Volcanic Forge to buff his board and an Earthquake to take the Viserys out. This is looking like it's going to be a huge damage push if Eric doesn't have something to counteract it. And it looks like Eric is going to have to take it. No Tsunamis in the back row by the looks of it. And that is going to be a huge hit overall. 4 spirits worth of damage.
It looked like Eric was momentarily considering a face down there potentially, but electing to not activate it. Very curious what that potentially could be if it wasn't. It's definitely not a Tsunami, because that would have been flipped immediately.
I would imagine it has to be a Shield of Achilles that he was considering for the Scavicole, but probably decided against it because then Scavicole can just come down and do it all again, unfortunately. Looks like an Ambrosia is going to get played out there and recover some spirits, bringing Eric back up into the green a good bit there.
Yeah, there is not really a great way here for Eric to effectively clear out this board, except for an Earthquake that, go tit for tat on Earthquakes.
Yeah, and the Ignectors, while absolutely powerful with the swarming, do not really have the attack values. But it looks like Eric is going to pass after that, passing the priority back over to Daimax, who's going to follow it up with a Necruff, misenchanted with Leviathan there, so it'll be immune to the Tsunamis. But it's also going to get PTA'd the moment it comes down here. Absolutely killer back row there with PTA. But it also does mean that Eric is going to take another 3 damage if it just all goes through here. 4 when you count in the PTA expend to take out the Necruff.
Yeah, this is an expensive turn. Eric, in this turn, single-handedly goes from 13 to 8. That is a very meaningful change in momentum here, despite Eric and Daimax being on very similar life totals. Daimax just has board pressure. Eric has 2 cards in hand now after drawing for turn, 1 set on field, and a Thunder is going to come out of the Spirit deck for an Ash
It's
Rabbit
the
defense
funny
position.
bunny.
There it is. Ash Rabbit gonna look at the top 3 cards of Eric's deck and choose one that's gonna get added to hand. It's very strong. So the question is, does Daimax have a way to out this? Well, we know actually he does. He has Lavalith.
Yeah, we saw him add the Lavalith off of the Scavicole search, so we know that not only does he have a way to ascend up into it to get over the rabbit, but also has a way to clear out Eric's last back row. This is looking like it's going to be a dire situation for Eric, because he realistically needs to find a way to either stop that ascension or to prevent these Ignectors just from continuing to amass massive amounts of advantage as they already have. Because realistically here, they have already gotten in 4 damage between the 2 of them, plus they got the Scavicole onto the board. It's looking pretty dire.
Yeah, you know, Daimax may have just been predicting the future when he replied to that A-Drive tweet and said that Ignector is going to top today. Now,
here comes the Lavalith.
Daimax is casting out Lavalith, going to pop that back row. It was a Shield of Achilles.
It was the
shield. We were right on the call there. Eric was considering likely a shield on the Scavicole turns prior, but Lavalith going to hit over the Ash Rabbit and 1 more damage direct from the Ignector hitting to Eric's face. And if you're Eric, you were sweating bullets prior. You're feeling pretty rough here.
Yeah, but even with the board presence completely in Daimax's favor, the life totals are actually pretty similar, all things considered. So realistically, this game could go either way, though it is very heavily favored towards Daimax at this particular stage. We're going to see another Thunder Spirit come down here. Looks like we've got the Jolton coming down, that reverse Stellar Jolton out of Shattered Star Scorpio as well.
It's very interesting. We're playing it in defense here, potentially searching out. Oh, it looks like we're not searching.
We're just going for
Cryoblast here. Very interesting.
It definitely looks to me like Eric might be trying to clean up the board for potentially a Laurel's play, if I had to take a guess. Trying to go for that Cryoblast, but I guess not. I don't know what happened there. Why the Cryoblast didn't fit? Oh, right, the Volcanic Forge is on the board.
Ignector's a 3, yeah. So it looks like Eric was attempting to take out Ignector, but because of Volcanic Forge, Ignector was at 3 defense, was not destroyed, and now this is game on board.
That is game on the board.
Now, Eric isn't dead yet, but they have 0 spirits in Spirit deck. So it is unlikely. Actually, no, they are just
dead. They are dead because they cast it down from 5 to 4 to use the Cryoblast, if I'm not mistaken there. Eric seems to be starting out with a set back row and then immediately casting that reverse Stellar Jolton. Looks like he is going to actually resolve it this time to try and search his deck for something. We didn't get to see what he wanted to search for. Probably was already in his hand, if I had to guess, from the last one, and it looks to be a Feloy Forest. Way to buff up that Viscerus. It looks like he's on a little more earth than we saw in the last game there. With that said, there, Jolton is not a body to sneeze at. Being 4 attack is actually still very impressive, and looks like he's going to pass from there over to Daimax.
My guess would have to be that Eric is only playing a single search target for Jolton in the deck. Otherwise, they were able to actually put up some pressure that last turn of the prior game by outing that Volcanic Forge. It may be that they just totally forgot and decided not to search for some reason. But if they had another target, that would have been able to at least get them some sort of board presence and out Daimax's board in some way. But speaking of board presence, Daimax running out Ash Rabbit, defense position, name a better combo. Now, into a Viserys that might be in Eric's hand plus the Feloy Forest. This might be a little scary, but we'll have to see what Eric has drawn for turn here to determine, is this board getting broken?
Yeah, that Feloy Forest search definitely makes this Ash Rabbit a little bit more suspect, all in all, as there are a lot of Earth Elestrals that can just kind of get over it in that regard. But it looks like we're going to be coming down with a Demeter. Looks like Demeter is going to be for 3 total, if I'm not mistaken there. Which that also will just answer the rabbit as well. Lunar Spirit coming down as well. We got, looks like a Spectaris, looks like the stained glass Spectaris there. That's going to put on a number of pressure too. Demeter there is going to buff. Don't know quite what he's trying to buff with the Demeter, but that is going to allow him to try and swing over the rabbit. If Daimax has a back row that can stop it, though, that's going to get a lot of potential value here.
Yeah, it's unlikely that Daimax will lose this rabbit if that back row is a live card. Because Eric only has one Elestral that can actually feasibly reach an attack stat that can out a 5 defense here. Spectaris only going to be able to reach a 5. Jolton only able to reach a 4. But it looks like Daimax is just going to let the attack go through and take one. Honestly, probably the right thing to do, even if that back row is live, because the only real value you get from using Shield of Achilles here is, or a Tsunami or something like that, is setting up attack plays or setting up such that you can... Oh, well, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah,
Volcanic Forge just hit the board. Forget what I was saying.
And
Volcanic Forge just
the
stoked the
Forge directly after. That is going to let Daimax basically search up what he wants. Stoke the Forge being able to search, I believe it's any 1-cost Fire Elestral while Volcanic Forge is on the board. And that is going to basically let Daimax get whatever he needs out of his deck here, which that looks like he's going to grab a Necruff off that. That's going to get him the offensive power that he absolutely needs here. It'll be able to answer actually both the Jolton and the Spectaris, as if it's properly enchanted, that will go up to a 6 attacker under the Forge.
Now, this is where Daimax doesn't even go for the Necruff. Daimax runs out Kindleo here in attack position, activates the effect to Nexus. We'll see Eric is just going to go ahead and Gorgon's Gaze that. Now, interestingly, Eric Gorgon's Gaze the effect to Nexus. This is potentially a misplay that could cost him, as the Volcanic Forge is still on field. And so Daimax will be able to play with that potentially, although Eric does have the Full Forest in hand, so maybe he's not concerned regardless. But generally, you want to let your opponent go for the Nexus first, as long as they're not getting any receive effects off. And it looks like Eric's just going to go ahead and run out the Full Forest here. And now we just have a lone Kinleo into a lot of Elestrals for Eric.
Absolutely. And honestly, that probably is the better play here, because it makes it to where the Spirit is no longer on the board. Knowing that you already have the Floy Forest to take out the Volcanic Forge means that you can effectively get another Spirit out of the board, just in case Daimax has something here to kind of buff up his Kinleo. It looks like Eric here just went and misenchanted his Spectaris. I didn't quite catch what he misenchanted it with. It almost looked like it was a Flurmine, making it immune to the Cryoblast follow-up. But it also looks like he's going to go in here, Jolton getting over the Kinleo, and Spectaris swinging in for 2, kind of putting Daimax on the back foot a little bit here, losing all of the board presence that he set up the previous turn. But there goes the Lava Lift, and that is going to be massive, because that can just clean up the Demeter and get 2 spirits off of this board right now.
Looks like actually Daimax went for the set back row, which is a Shield of Achilles. That's pretty massive here, because that means that Spectaris and Jolton are now just wide open for Daimax to swing over with this Lava Lift. Spectaris only going to reach a 5 attack stat, and it looks like that attack is connecting here.
Yeah, absolutely. And realistically, that is probably the better play if that back row is anything defensive for Daimax. It makes it to where a Demeter buff on Jolton has to still contend with a back row to remove this Lava Lift. He's not out of the woods though. Eric is in an extremely powerful position between the Feloy and the Demeter. It looks like he's also going to Ambrosia here to get back 3 spirits. And on top of that, that's going to set up any kind of an Earth Elestral coming down here, an Earth Enchanted Elestral, could still probably put up enough pressure to answer this Lava Lift.
Yeah, the question is, can Eric reach an attack stat of 6 or 7 with 2 Elestrals on board? And it looks like Eric's just going to re-enchant Jolton here with an Earth Spirit to get it to a 5, then Demeter buff it to get it to an 8. It's very interesting. Yeah. It may have just been better to expend to draw here, but Daimax does have the Gorgon's Gaze to prevent an attack from going through, and that Demeter looks like it still has 1 spirit underneath it, so that is something that Daimax has to consider, that on the following turn, Eric can just run over this Lava Lift if Daimax doesn't see another Elestral. Or another. It
looks like Daimax is going to follow it up with a Rumacole here. Rummikul being able to search, I believe, the Forge or the Stoke the Forge. And looks like Daimax is going to search for the Forge here. That's going to delete the Falloy Forest off the board. And with that, that is going to make his board absolutely massive. The Lavalith going up to an 8 attacker, and that Rummikul also not being a body to sneeze at. It also is going to make it to where that Jolton drops back down to 4 attack and is going to force an answer out of Eric here on the Gorgon's Gaze. I'd imagine onto the Lavalith to prevent the attack over Jolton. But it looks like Daimax is... oh no!
So what happened looks like is the lava
he's still crashed,
and then we're crashing the Scavicul or the Rummikul. As Rummikul has an effect where if a Volcanic Forge is on field, it gives itself 1 attack.
You're right.
And so it's a 4 attacker, which crashes with the Jolton.
Yeah, and it's still going to, if I'm not mistaken, that would still deal a damage to Daimax being at a spirit differential there, but it is still really powerful, cleaning up the board state. But Eric wasting no time, dropping that Falloy Forest, followed by an Earthquake to absolutely just clean up. Daimax has nothing on board now, and Eric is going to be able to develop an Elestral into a completely open board state if he has one in hand, which is that would be absolutely killer. It looks like Eric doesn't have anything in hand, and is just going to opt the pass, not taking the expend to draw. Oh no! The Ignector coming down, getting 3 Ignectors total onto the board. Daimax is going to lose his ability to go into battle this turn to do that, but that is absolutely an incredible swing of advantage. You imagine that Eric is probably sweating a little bit, even with having the advantage on the spirit count.
Yeah, now Eric probably doesn't feel too bad because any Earth Celestial here does it, and Mudlet is an Earth Celestial that does it. Maybe you don't necessarily need to use the effect to change a position, but Mudlet will be able to hit over any of these Ignectors.
Except for the Gorgon's Gaze as the follow-up.
Very interesting here from Daimax, wanting to keep these 3 Elestrals up. They have an Ambrosia in hand. I was going to say they must have some sort of game plan here because the Ambrosia is going to help set them up for the next turn here. Surely they have something big in hand. Necruff, we knew they searched it. That's the thing that they needed. This is 4 burn damage between swinging and the Necruff effect. And into nothing, you feel super confident correctly enchanting that Necruff. And Eric is going to go down to 3 here.
Yeah, but it makes it pretty even. Daimax spent his last spirit on that Ambrosia, bringing him back up to 3, going down to 2 with the Necruff cast. So all in all, it looks like Eric's down to 2, not 3. So Daimax definitely has the advantage with the board presence, but Eric does still have a 3rd spirit 4 spirits technically between the Demeter and the Falloy Forest still on the board. But resting on your laurels coming down here, I imagine it's going to clean up that Necruff.
That's the only card in hand is the thing. That's not going to be enough here.
You're right.
This is game.
Yeah, that is going to be game with Daimax taking this first match a solid and swift 2-0 with those Ignectors absolutely being the playmaker of the game.